Managing money is not for everyone. And yet when you're gone, your heirs are going to get it all. What are the things that you need to be teaching your kids or your grandkids today? Join us on Consider This program, and we'll give you 7 things that you should really teach others about your money. Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This program. I am your host, Joe Clark.
And I'm Jamie Burton.
We are happy to have you along. Hey, we are talking about financial considerations for women on this show, but this isn't just really about women. This is about all of your kids, all of your heirs, all of your beneficiaries. It may very well be your spouse, right? These are strategies and things that you really need to be able to articulate to make sure that the people on the other end are there. Folks, in 1980, before 401ks and KEO Acts and all the other stuff were put into play, you didn't die with $1 million very often, right? Today, it's pretty regular basis. We see $1 million IRAs and 401ks, sometimes $2 million. And if there's 2 of you, sometimes it's $3 million and change, right? We see these all the time. Kids who may have no assets, no training, and no education are going to inherit this money unless we do an awful lot to protect them up front. That's why we have our trust division to be able to help with that. But we're going to give you some ideas. We brought in Jamie Burton. She is one of our senior advisors up in the Lafayette office and got her degree in financial planning from Purdue University. I happen to be her senior class professor, so I can attest to it. Nothing like being able to cherry pick, right? We've got, out of the 38 of us on the team, I think 5, maybe 6, but at least 5 of you were in my classes over the 7-year period of time. So it's a true honor and privilege for me. So Jamie, let's talk about it. What are the 7 things that you're going to tell your girls and that I should have told mine?
Yeah.
And that we should all be able to be willing to share with our kids and grandkids?
Yeah. So just starting off, these kids are going to be inheriting all this money that you've saved over your lifetime. You didn't save this far to have your kids inherit it and then the IRS take over or them make bad money decisions.
Or their spouses make bad decisions.
Yes, absolutely. Because here they are inheriting all of your money, but they aren't going to also inherit your experience unless you give that to them up front before something happens to you. So these are kind of the 7 things we put together. Like, you should really talk to your kids about this because your experience is worth a lot. So number 1, have your kids learn how to set goals. So you have short-term goals, mid-term goals, long-term goals. Explain to your kids what those are, what those could be, and how to set those goals and how to really plan to reach those goals.
That isn't just money, right? But it's inside of that lesson, one of the things I would teach would be compound interest, right? People often get, no, that's not true. People rarely get the impact of compound interest. The ones that get compound interest don't understand compound debt, right? So remember, as you're paying a credit card, it's the same problem against you as it is when you're investing and compound interest is working for you, right?
Right.
But help them set those goals and understand the difference.
Absolutely. Number 2, don't spend money to make yourself feel good. Retail therapy is a real thing. I enjoy retail therapy, but it's not, you need to come up with other creative ways to make yourself feel good rather than spending money to make that happen. So that's number 2.
Retail therapy, I've never really, this is why we have you on the show, because I've never really had retail therapy.
I don't know if it's a female thing, but
I will,
shopping feels good.
I will tell you, I spent a lot more money when I had a lot less than I do it. It's just kind of like, I don't need those.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's, I get it. So it's, and that's a tough thing, but it is, teaching people how to properly use money as a tool is important.
Yes.
All right, keep going.
Absolutely. Number 3, spend less than what you earn. So it might seem like something that's not rocket science, but a lot of times you get caught up in being able to spend money with a loan or a credit card and you don't actually have the money earned yet. So you can get that immediate gratification, but then you can get yourself into big trouble. And it's really, if you're wanting to build wealth, you have to get that down to spend less than what you earn, or it's just never going to happen for you.
Well, I think it's one of the biggest travesties that come out of the student loan industry. I watched it with your class and believe it or not, and parents, if you don't know this, you need to know this, right? They would get student loans for, let's say, $10,000, and and there would be money left over, and instead of sending the check back to the institution, they would send the check to the kids, right? So suddenly you've got an 18, 19, 20-year-old, 21-year-old, walking around with 3, 4, 10 grand, right? Mom and dad don't know, but Harry sure knew. That was the chocolate shop, the bar in Lafayette, in case you missed it, right? And what happened is they learned to live on that income under the presumption that they were going to graduate and make enough money to be able to pay back the debt without really understanding all of the implications that came along with it. And you would watch college seniors graduate, not able to get car loans because their debt to income ratio was out of whack, right? Not to be able to buy houses, sometimes not even be able to rent an apartment. And even if it wasn't them, it was their soon to be spouse, right? You do inherit the debt of the other party, whether you like that ticket or not. So that is a huge thing to do, and we could do a whole show on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So number 4, teach your kids to build an emergency fund. So this kind of goes along with the other ones. You don't want them spending a lot of money on credit cards, don't want them having to take out unnecessary loans. So if you teach them to build that emergency fund, they have that to pull from when something does happen, and they don't have to get into that debt cycle that they can't get out of.
Yeah, enough said on that one.
Yep. Number 5, don't let the fear of investing or losing money stop you from investing. So like you were saying, compound interest is an incredible thing that when you start early, that can really work for you and be very beneficial for you. But, there are some horror stories with investing with the crash in 2008 or the tech wreck where people lost a lot of money and then took it out and it was gone. So you got to be able to teach through those fears and know that, there are ups and downs in the market, but in the long run, it's going to be really beneficial for you to invest the money.
If you don't get the market carver, you may want to go to our website at yourlifeafterwork.com, get signed up for it. It's free. Since 2007, I've done a weekly video, either myself or Adam Harder, our chief investment officer, and one of my partners, where we break down what we think is going on in the economy. And the reason this point is so critical. This is my 34th year in the industry. I started 2 weeks before the crash in '87. So we're nigh on my 34th anniversary coming up here pretty quickly. It's the first time in recorded history where I have more money invested in equities than Jamie does because of our age difference. And Jamie has more money invested than she doesn't have any high school kids, but let's pretend she did, than her college-age kids, and that my parents would have more money invested in equities than I do. It's the first time in recorded history where the older generation has more money invested in equities. We have never seen the like of this. And it really, really, really is a challenging thing. So if you caught the earlier part of the show, we talked about what happens when one spouse dies and suddenly the investment plan changes in entirety because the one didn't understand what the other one was doing, or you switch to a new broker, right? Or you stayed at the same firm, but you get a new broker and suddenly the investment policy statement was changed and everything became different. That's really what's happening here. You've got a lot of money invested in 401ks and IRAs, and if we don't talk to your kids about them, that's why we family bundle. We put you together in a package to reduce their fees and expenses. But if we don't talk to your kids about that now, they're going to inherit a lot of money that you worked hard to save and accumulate. The IRS is going to get a chunk. There's no way around it. But we certainly don't want Mr. Market to take money away from them either, right? We need to be providing some of this education and some of this guidance. So like I said, get signed up for the Market Carver. I'm happy to talk to you about that. All right.
Okay. Number 6, let your kids and grandkids learn from your own money mistakes. So let them know not just the good things that you've done to accumulate all the assets that you have, but also the mistakes that you've made so that they don't have to go and make the same mistakes to learn.
Well, and it's the easiest thing to do is to be able to teach from your own mistakes, and yet it's the hardest thing to do, right? People don't want to fess up to mistakes that they've made. Now, remember, we help reduce financial regrets, all right? So it's real easy to get caught on the negative train here, right? And say, well, I wish I hadn't have done that. Every now and then somebody gets frustrated with me and says, how can you have no regrets? Well, I pretty much like my life. And right, I mean, everything that I did, I can see what led from point A to point B to point Z, right? So it's really hard for me to go back. But, well, there's some boneheaded moves that I made along the way where, I wish I would have thought about this just a little bit differently, right? And talk about what's going on. We had one, when our planning team discussion, our planning team works together, right? And we had two of our people I was teaching last week in one of the meetings, and somebody emailed in and said, hey, I've got $14,000 worth of student debt, right? It's at 8%. Should I pay it off or not pay it off? And immediately one of my guys, because they understand the idea of opportunity cost, one of the guys said, okay, right? If it's a guaranteed 8%, then the answer is yes, you should have paid it off. And I said, not so fast, Tonto, right? Is it credit card debt or student loan debt? And they looked at me and they go, why does that matter? Right? Well, here's why it matters. Student loan debt, once they're out of school, they can't go back and reacquire. Credit card debt, on the other hand, the average person who maxes those out does it 7 times over their lifetime. They are just prolific spenders of money, right? And if you do not teach people how that stuff works, you're in trouble. So hit the 7 real quick again.
And that number 7 is don't be using credit cards for everyday expenses.
I agree. Now, there are green stamps, folks. I know if you're my age, I'm 54, right? There are green stamps that we used to get when we were kids. This is how I pay for airline mileage. It's how I pay for trips. But there's a difference between people who use them and who abuse them.
Absolutely.
And again, if you go to the Market Carver, if you watch this week's video, you'll actually see me talk about the fact that credit card utilization is up 18% year over year. That's the number of people using it. But the amount of debt that we're using has stayed relatively consistent. The percentage of the debt that we're using is decreasing. There's a lot of consumer-based firepower that is out there. Jamie, we appreciate this. Don't forget to go to yourlifeafterwork.com. Get signed up for a Next Steps meeting. It's complimentary. If you want to do this on your own, really, truly, that's your business. But if you're looking for a fiduciary, that is our business. Give us a call. Ask to talk to Jamie. Come in and see us. You got nothing to lose. Bring your stuff. We'll give you things to consider today, things to consider in the future, and if we choose to partner together, what FEG will do for you.